Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Two for Talking podcast. I'm your host, Corey Tusick. I've got Josh Yohe with The Athletic and comedian Joe Bartnick alongside. And, the Penguins, despite, a 3-0 loss on Saturday, which, stop me if you heard that before, 3-0 to the Devils. But we had a couple nice games. We had a nice win against Joe's mistress team and the Kings. And then I will throw it to Joe first because we had a nice comeback against the Predators. And Mr. Rusty Razor had himself a nice week.
Yeah, Rusty Razor with the Chuck Woolery, the 2-2 was always nice to see. That line was ridiculous against the Nashville Predators. The Kings, I think it's the first. The mistress has bit me many a time for my love of the mistress. As Josh, I'm sure knows, we had to sit through one of my all-time favorite players when they retired Dustin Brown's, or they gave Dustin his jersey and his statue. That took like 5 hours out of here.
At least.
Yeah. I was back to Pittsburgh for a game. We always lose to the Kings, it seems like, except the one time when I brought my daughter. Or a couple of times when my daughter used to come with me, it was good luck because I remember one time we were winning like 4-1 after one. Sid scored, Gino scored. We had like $300 seats. We won the fight right in front of us, and then they announced. I've said this on the show before. They announced, come back Saturday when the LA Kings play the Philadelphia Flyers. And my daughter looked at me. She goes, "Can we come back on Saturday and boo the Flyers?" I'm like, that was my proudest moment. Full ride to Berkeley notwithstanding, my proudest moment was that moment in fatherhood.
It's in her DNA to hate that team, and I respect that about her.
Yeah, we can dig in. I just thought that against the Devils, I thought that was Gino's best game in like 2 weeks, though. He was flying. But Josh, what did you like? I thought they deserved a better fate in Jersey.
No, they played fine in Jersey, and honestly, if Sid buries one into that empty net in the second period, they might well win that game. You know how that goes. Just looking at the whole week, the LA game I thought was one of their best of the season. And you haven't seen the Penguins beat the Kings much over the years because the Kings are designed to beat them. When you've got Kopitar, always lined up, that makes Sid's life miserable. And Danault is also one of the best defensive forwards in hockey. They are, clinically designed to give the Penguins fits. Historically, they do. And I don't think the Kings played a bad game that night. I thought they were pretty good. They're a hell of a team. We all know that. The Penguins just played a good, smart, steady game. And Sid and Gino were so good in that game. You could kind of see it coming, especially in the third period. Like, Sid just took over the game. Then Gino drew the penalty. Sid sets up Grzelcyk. You could feel the game in Nashville coming for Sid a couple of days in advance. I wasn't at all surprised that he erupted the way he did. I actually thought the game against the Predators was their poorest of the three. Like, I didn't think they played a great game. They were giving up the odd man rushes, just doing some, stupid stuff. But it was nice to see the offense explode a little bit and the big guys to carry the load. It's nice to know that even though they can't play that way all the time anymore, that every now and then they can still win a game in that fashion. I really think that's important. And yeah, the top line was just unbelievable in that game. Sid and Russ especially were unstoppable. And yeah, the Jersey game, they played fine. I thought it was a very evenly matched game. They were great in the first period. It was just the classic case. If they scored first, there's a good chance they get at least a point out of that game, but they didn't. But all things considered, they're a point out of a playoff spot, I think, or a couple of points out. Things are very much trending upward as we head toward the holidays, which I would not have said a month ago.
Oh, 1,000%. And I really do believe the Kings was one of their 2 or 3 best games of the year by far. Yeah. All lines, all defensemen. What I really liked about the Nashville game, among the Rusty Razor, Corey, was it really looked like Mr. Carlson was invested. Like, he wanted to win as much as I did, which we can all say he may be a cool customer, and he may be one of those guys that has the fire inside and the team loves him. But to the outsider, it doesn't look like he gives a damn sometimes. And it looked like he wanted blood, and he gave some up in Nashville.
I agree. He's been much better in general. I think we've lately seen some classic Carlson games. We saw one in Ottawa in his old stomping grounds too, where he may have screwed up on the overtime game winner, and he may have made a couple of mistakes, but we're starting to see the pizzazz in the offensive zone that was kind of missing. Like, you're willing to deal with some of his mistakes and some of his brain farts if he's going to be the magical version of Erik Karlsson in the offensive zone that we're accustomed to seeing over the years. That's what we haven't seen enough of in his season and a half in Pittsburgh, in my opinion. For whatever reason, he's starting to come to life in that regard. He made that gorgeous feed to Sid for his goal on the shot pass, which, Sully always complains that Karlsson looks for that a little too much, and he probably does. Like the way he can shoot the puck, you just want to see him shoot more. But that was a beautiful play. There's not many defensemen who have that kind of vision and who can execute that play the way he did. And I just think his overall game, probably the last 2 or 3 weeks now, he's been doing 2 or 3 things a game that make you go, whoa, like, look at that play. Like, just weren't seeing that in October. And I don't want to completely defend him because the way he played in October was inexcusable. I don't give a shit if he had training camp or not. But I do wonder if his conditioning just wasn't good, if that affected his entire game, his timing, everything else, because he didn't have a training camp really, because this is a much different player that we're seeing on December 23rd than what we were seeing in the first 6 weeks. It's not even close.
By far, we can get into the defense, not next segment, but in like a couple minutes. But I wanted to. My biggest concern right now is, and I think you made a great point on Mark Madden show about how they're just a better team whenever so and so is not in the lineup on the fourth line. Who knew that Nieto would be better than
Kevin Hayes? Yeah.
I feel bad. I don't know him personally, but I just any big American guy that likes to have a cocktail, I'm a fan of. But then Nieto's played okay. I'm worried about Gino's line. I want to ask my resident expert that I get to talk to every week. I'm so happy about Mr. Yowie. Thanks for putting us together, Corey.
Yeah, no problem.
My Christmas gift for the year. I get to have Josh for an hour. I'm okay. I'm coming around on Bunting. I'll accept Bunting, and I won't even push my weekly. Why the hell isn't Jesse Puljujärvi playing? Which I think would be the perfect spot for him. But Glass is doing nothing.
No,
they need to find somebody to play besides Bunting with Gino.
They gave Tomasino the pretty quickly. He had a couple of quiet games and he's off of that line. It looks like it's going to be Glass again there tonight against the Flyers. By the way, I understand the situation for Sullivan on this level. I feel like it makes more sense to have just leave Russ with Sid, maybe put Raquel with Gino. Split. They're clearly the 2 best wingers on the team. Give each of your centers one of those to play with. It makes you a more balanced team, right? And I do think we'll see that eventually. But then there are nights like Nashville where that line was just so unstoppable that I can understand Sully's hesitation to break them up. But I think after the holidays, perhaps, or whenever they hit a little bit of a cold spell, I think it needs to be done. I have always loved Russ with Gino, actually. I think those two are great together, and I think Raquel is a much better player with Sid, but whatever. I know Sid wants to play with Russ, fine. Those two are so dynamic together. It's okay. Raquel and Malkin have been pretty good during stretches this season. I think that's really the only answer, right? Because if Bunting's the third wheel on that second line, the way he's going now, like, fine. Obviously, O'Connor's not that guy. I don't think anyone else on the roster, including Cody Glass, is. Cody Glass never screws up, but he's just not doing anything. He's just invisible night in and night out, I think. And you can't have a guy who's invisible playing with Gino. It's just not going to work long term.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I'm grasping at straws. If it's not going to be Puljujärvi, try Beauvillier. Somebody. I don't know.
He can skate. Yeah.
I mean, Tomasino was on fire. We loved him for a couple games. He's still better than Glass. Now, did he cool him? Him cooling off is still better than Cody Glass.
Yes. Well, and I wonder if Tomasino's 100%. He missed a little bit of action with an injury, and I don't think he's looked like the same guy since he came back, or maybe that was just a little bit of adrenaline from the trade sometimes. So we still have to figure out just how good he is. But yeah, I mean, Malkin, I've had a lot of people say, what's up with Gino? He had that good start. Now his production's down. Like, well, look who he's playing with. Like, this isn't 23-year-old Gino that can, make anybody a 25 goal scorer. He needs a little bit of help. And I love how he's playing. He continually is not making stupid plays. He's not taking the bad penalties, the turnovers. So that's great. He's playing a much more structured style of hockey, which the Penguins want. But to get the most out of him, you need to give him some help because his wheels, like the last few games, the way he has skated, oh my God, he's weaving around people like the days of old. We really saw it in the LA game. Like in the first two periods, I mean, he was like challenging guys one-on-one and beating them in a way that we haven't seen as much in recent years. So take advantage of him and give him some help. That's what I say.
He did that in Jersey. He was the best player on the ice half that game.
By far.
Yeah. He looked even faster than Hughes and Bratt, everybody.
Yeah, he's feeling good about himself. I mean, that's pretty clear.
Because because I'm pleased with the third and fourth lines. I'm pleased.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but honestly, Achari and Nieto on that fourth line, they've actually been pretty good. Yeah. They've been very effective. I know they're never going to score a lot, but that's okay. I mean, they're creating some positive momentum. They're drawing some penalties. They're not giving up goals when they're on the ice. Like that, they're fine. The second and third lines, I think there are some issues we should probably mention while we're talking about the third line. Like, I cover the team, so I should be able to provide this answer, but I don't know. So I'm going to ask you guys, like, what the hell's going on with Drew O'Connor? I mean, man, this is not good.
Is he looking good in practice anymore?
No. I mean, not as noticeable, but he was one of those guys in practice, training camp. He'd always be unbelievable. You can see the physical talent the guy has, but his confidence just seems to be shot right now, and that's a major problem for the Penguins. They need some kind of production from this guy.
Well, I do think we have to let our esteemed producer answer that question because I have no answer. I don't know how.
You're on the spot, Corey.
I don't know how you can't score in 20 games. I mean,
30.
It seems like
almost 30.
Like he's around.
Empty net. That's the only solution I have at the moment because I mean, honestly, I like O'Connor, but he doesn't do enough other stuff that's good, in my opinion, to not be scoring. No forward can go 20 games without scoring, but I don't.
No, I mean it's.
Is he off the penalty kill now? He used to be a good penalty killer.
He still kills penalties.
I thought
and he's good at that. I mean, he's always going to help you defensively. And he's one of those guys.
By 20 games without.
No, and I mean, I used to say the same thing about Craig Adams. Like, that's great that you can block shots, pal. Could he score like maybe 2 goals a season instead of 1? But with Drew, it's tough because. He scored 6 goals in the last 12 games of last season, right? And I know he's playing with Sid, but you could see a little bit of goal scoring touch. And he scored 3 goals in the first 6 games of this season. And you're like, ooh, like, okay, this guy's like a legit 20 goal scorer, like who could also kill penalties. Now that's who you want, as a third line center, or maybe even in your top 6. Like, he had become that guy, I think we all thought. And now when you watch him play, I mean, you can just see the confidence is shot, and it's a major problem for the Penguins.
Well, that's why I would tonight. It's not going to happen. You've already been to morning skate. I would have Beauvillier and O'Connor with Gino. The way Gino's skating, you send O'Connor just sit in front of the net, it'll hit you in the ass.
Now, Tristan Jarry would say that goal shouldn't count.
Beauvillier has the hands to make. And then you put. I think Bunting can play in the third line. He's fine.
No, that's not the worst idea. I mean, because one thing, Beauvillier and O'Connor can both really skate. And that's, Sully always says he wants, he admits Gino's lost a step from when he was young. He can still skate, but Sully really likes speed flanking him on each side. So what you're suggesting makes sense. And that's the thing with Cody Glass. Like, I don't know what he does well. Like, he's okay. He doesn't hurt you, but I don't think he's that fast. I don't see any goal scoring touch to speak of. He was a first-round pick, so when guys are first-round picks, we always maybe expect a little more than sometimes they have to offer. But they need to find something to get him going 5-on-5. And I think leaving Raquel and Russ on the top line all year, it's great for that line, but man, does it make them a one-line team.
It does, but I also think, like, if Cody Glass is vanilla next to Achari and NATO, that's fine. Okay. As long as you finish your checks, you run the cycle, and maybe you can get an icing, and then we can throw Sid's line over the boards. Like, that's fine, but you can't have wasted potential and no upside and not be that young and skate with Gino. Then you're just holding up a sweater. That I'd rather see Puustinen than Glass. Ooh. On Gino's line.
Yeah, that's where we're at. And you can see the lack of depth on the top 6. Like, it's never really been a problem in Pittsburgh over the years. And sometimes we can argue about who should be playing with Sid or Gino, but generally there were always some pretty legitimate options for those two over the years. And I think now we're seeing, after Rust and Raquel, the rest of these guys are question marks. We've seen some positive moments, sure, but there's no sure thing. And that's an issue for the Penguins moving forward. And it's not like they have anyone in their system who is a surefire top 6 NHL winger just waiting to happen.
It's not McGroarty. I thought that was
maybe. I don't know if I'm going to call him a surefire. I mean, obviously they like him and he better be, but I don't think he's going to be like a 40 goal scorer either.
No, but was the Jägermeister without the nuts? You know, Jaeger without 30 pounds, I think had a little more upside. Well, I like the trade though. I'm not going to go back. The bigger question, the only really bad situation is our real true number 1 pick, Mr. Pickering, who looked very good, is now IR. They brought up a kid that I don't remember from camp, and I mistakenly, I think I said I said a different guy. I was wondering about the other Sebastian Aho.
Oh,
what happened to him? Because I think I said Van Reems. Van Reems. I said some of the name because I knew it was like the name of somebody else in the NHL.
That's actually pretty funny, and I didn't even notice at the time because I knew exactly who you were talking about.
Exactly. I'm like, I hope I didn't make Josh look back because after that, I'm like, no, it's Aho because I saw the real Sebastian Aho the other day. I go, that's the guy I was thinking of for the Penguins.
Right. I think he's hurt, by the way. I think he got hurt. I think he's on.
Yeah, he's not on the because I scoured the Wilkes-Barre like, where'd he go? Long story short, we're back to Graves.
Yeah, we are with Ryan Shea on the third pairing, which when you talk about a pairing whose numbers you want to shelter a little bit, I think it would be those two indeed. And I can tell you, just based on the lines that we saw this morning in the combos, which I'm actually going to read for you in a second, but it's going to be P.O. Joseph with Chris Letang, which makes sense. They don't really have any other options. Those two were really good at the end of last season, especially P.O. Like that's where we saw P.O., I thought, play some of his best hockey. He and Chris are really comfortable together. So they'll be together. Karlsson and Grzelcyk have been surprisingly okay the last couple of games. So they're going to stick together. And it looks like Graves and Shea on a third pairing, which sounds a little frightening. We'll see how that goes. Everything else up front looks about the same that we saw last game. So I guess it's a good thing that he got P.O. though, because at least P.O.'s competent. You know, he's nothing special, but you know what you're getting at least because, man, that you're starting to get to the bottom of the barrel without Pickering. It's amazing how much they're depending on the kid already, but he's been really solid, Joe.
I loved his game.
Yeah.
I think he's played I mean, it's like, oh my God, it's like, and he's allowed to make a couple mistakes. I mean, yeah. There's guys going to the Hall of Fame and guys who think they're going to the Hall of Fame. They make way more egregious mistakes.
Oh yeah,
than Pickering has.
That's right.
He only made one play, I think it is in about 2 weeks. I was like, ugh. And that was when he was chasing behind the net and he made Sid look bad.
Yeah. That was the first goal of the game, right?
It was like, wait, what are you doing, son? Right. But I applauded the P.O. pick whenever everyone was healthy because I'm like, this just moves Graves right out of there. This is fantastic.
Well, it does a lot of things. If you're going to trade Pettersson at some point, it gives you some insurance. At least you have an adequate guy you can fill in. It might keep Graves out of the lineup when everybody's healthy. That's very true. You didn't give up anything to get him, really. So you add it all up, it makes sense. And yeah, Pickering, he has exceeded, I think, everyone's expectations. There's nothing spectacular about his game, but they knew that when they drafted him. They want this to be another Marcus Pettersson, Brian Dumoulin kind of guy. He actually, just the way he plays, like, he's not a great skater, but he reminds me a little bit of Olli Mata. Maybe even like when Olli was, in his later years in Pittsburgh when he didn't move quite as well, but he was still just so dependable. He had the long reach. He thought the game really well. Like Pickering is a really smart player. That play he made on that goal you're talking about with Sid, like we noticed it, especially because he hasn't done stuff like that because he's really sharp. I mean, he just knows where to be. That long reach plays for him really well. So I am quite encouraged by what I've seen from him. And he does have a concussion, by the way, that was announced this morning. So
Dumo's a great answer to the way he plays. I think Dumo may be a little more physical or just sturdy, but he still needs a few Permandi sandwiches to get him. So I'm not holding that against him. But you're right. Just like, Who made that nice play at the blue line to keep it in, or who made that sensible play to just off the boards and out? Right?
Yes,
it's Pickering. That's all I ask for. And truly, remember 2 years ago when P.O. Joseph was our biggest problem? That's how far the defense has fallen. And now P.O. Joseph is
shit, P.O. All right,
yeah.
Welcome back, buddy.
Yeah, I remember. Like you people couldn't wait to get him out of town.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I tell you what, a really sobering thought. Whenever whenever that went out, I was like, oh my God, thank God we got P.O. Joseph. And then I saw Madden tweet and he said, you retweeted it and said, why? And I was like, well, maybe it isn't really that good. But like in my mind, I was like, oh my God, like our defense is saved. I've been curious to see. I mean, because he did play really good at the end of the season last year. So, I'm curious. I wanted to ask you guys, Josh, about what does speaking of Madden, he kind of wrote about this. The team's play kind of puts Kyle Dubas in a tough position. And we were talking earlier about Geno, and we're talking, needing some wingers to elevate his game. Talking about, shoring up the end of the defensive, front. But, what is there anything that Kyle Dubas is going to do? Is he going to want to do something? Or what's going to happen here to try and give Geno some help and maybe shore up the D?
Yeah, the more they win, the more it puts Kyle Dubas in a very uncomfortable position. We all know what the plan is here. Not necessarily the massive rebuild that we talk about, but the plan is absolutely to trade Marcus Pettersson. I wouldn't be shocked if, Raquel is available come March. There are others. You already traded Lars Eller, who's a pretty darn good player. All of a sudden they start winning. And what if they're a couple of points inside of a playoff spot or outside come the trade deadline? What happens? Nobody has the answer to that question. My sense is Kyle will still sell some players because he's still keeping his eye on the prize, and that being, building something long-term here. But I also wouldn't be shocked if, and again, I have no particular intel on this at the moment, but I wouldn't be shocked if he trades Marcus Pettersson for a second-round pick and a prospect and trades someone else, but also gives up a fourth-round pick or a third-round pick to bring in somebody to help simultaneously where he's still helping the system and upgrading the draft picks, but still trying to give them something to help them make the playoffs if they would have a chance. I can't believe we're talking about this. But it's going to be hard if the Penguins are in a playoff spot. And they're a couple of points out right now. If they're in a playoff spot, March 7th, when they're in Vegas getting ready to play the Golden Knights that night, it's really hard for Kyle Dubas to look Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin in the eye and say, sorry, I had to get rid of everybody because we're worried about 5 years from now, so I'm not going to help you guys. And I know some fans don't want to hear that. Like, screw that. We need to build for the future now, rebuild. But you got to put yourself in his shoes. Those guys are still trying to make the playoffs, and that's ultimately still what it's about in this sport. I said the same thing last week. Why do we all love hockey? Because of those April nights when it's playoff time and you're going to the arena to watch a playoff game or watch it on TV. That's what makes the game special. And that's why Sid and Geno are still playing. So it's a really difficult spot for Dubas.
Yeah, I have no problem with them trading Pettersson. I think even if we are and I think if we're the third seed, they should trade Pettersson. I just think it's wise business. We're not going to pay him what he wants. It's time to move on. I think we should keep Raquel no matter what, because he's only a $5 million winger. The way he's playing right now, he's worth the money. If he sucked, I'd say try to get rid of him.
And it's not like they have anyone else,
If you get rid of him, you're just going to be looking for a guy that makes $5 million that can produce as well as he can. And we have him for another year, and the big guys like him. And I mean, look, all we're trying to do now is find a replacement for Jake. And thank God Rusty's kind of waking. But, you can't just lose guys. And I think I've said this now for a month. You can't tear it all down, because the teams that tear it all down, it may take a generation.
That's right.
To build it back up. Look who didn't tear it all down. The Kings didn't tear it all down. And Boston didn't tear it all down. And they're right in the mix. Who tore it all down? Chicago. They're nowhere to be found. No. Detroit. They're nowhere to be found.
Great point.
Like, you can't tear it all down. So, and for $5 million, I want to keep Raquel. No, some of the other pieces, the fourth line guys, I know. I like Blake Lizotte playing great. Someone wants to give you a second or third round pick, whatever. yeah, they can find other Blake Lizotte. But I think I would not get rid of Raquel.
No, I am really starting to come along to that way of thinking, and of course, I would say the same about Brian Rust. Like, you do.
That's a non. I mean,
you have to keep. I mean, listen, every player has a price, but I think there are ways you can still very quickly enhance your system. Don't trade your first round picks. You know, you've got a couple of second and a couple of third extra picks already in the next couple of years that Dubas has already acquired. And yeah, there are some guys. I love Marcus. I think he's a really good player. You can trade Marcus, get a second round pick and a good prospect, and go out into free agency and buy another Marcus Pedersen for the same price. And your NHL team's just as good and your future is better. Like, there's ways you can go about it. So I agree with that. And I also think, even though this is overused terminology in hockey, probably, there's something to be said for the culture that the Penguins have. And I want young players in the next 5 years around Brian Rust. I want them watching the way he prepares for every game, the way he lives his life on and off the ice. I want them around Sid, obviously. Like, and Raquel too is just a wonderful human being, great teammate. Like, I mean, we always say that about all hockey players. He really is. He's one of those guys. Like, it's a really good thing to have a bunch of 18-year-old kids learn from them. So when those guys are gone someday, you know, those habits have been instilled in them. I'm a big believer in that. And I think places like Anaheim now and Chicago, who are the young guys in Chicago learning from? Taylor Hall? Like, what's he ever done? Like, you know, seriously, like, I think there's something to be said for what you're saying.
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, I remember, 5 years ago when I said, I don't care what happens with everybody, but they got to keep Rusty. I know I know I'm a Rusty guy. You want to have a link to Sid and Gino. You want to have a link, Josh, when you bring your boys to the game. It's like, yeah, Brian Rust, he has 2 Stanley Cups. Like, yeah, he played with Sid and Gino. You want it when you see highlights of this, when they showed in the Jumbotron, the glory years, Rust will be in the highlights. You need a guy. You need that guy because they're already there. It could have been Jake. I admit it could have been Jake. The Rust could be gone, but they didn't keep Jake, so they have Rust. They got to keep one of these guys around to be. They need to have the captain.
No,
he's got to be the captain of the Penguins.
No, that's so true. And if you like, I've long time ago, I didn't really cover the Steelers. I used to write about them a little bit though. And I talked with some players. Ben Roethlisberger, I'll never forget him talking about this. He talked about that line of what you're talking, the generation to generation. And we drove it all back. It started with Rod Woodson, actually. We were talking Rod Woodson, like when he came into the league, he played with Dwayne Woodruff and Donnie Shell and John Stallworth. I think those guys were all still on that team. And Woodson still played with Jerome Bettis for a year in Pittsburgh. And then Bettis still played with Ben. And there was just that lineage of guys who learned from people who were champions, who were great players. And some organizations don't have that. And I think it's really difficult when you're the Columbus Blue Jackets or some of these young teams that have never won anything. You have people like Sidney Crosby to learn from. I know a lot of people roll their eyes, the analytics people, the team chemistry and this and that. No, it actually does matter in some ways, more than people think. And the Penguins have that. So you can still rebuild or reload or whatever you want to call it. But that's right. You don't need to completely blow it up. And there's a reason these guys were as good as long as they've been good.
Yeah, and it's like kids want to have the Rusty Shake. He's part of Pittsburgh. Like he's the fabric of the team. Let's just throw that away. And that's the thing too is like there's and I'm he has leadership or he's a team guy. He's a veteran guy. He's a team. He's a leader. Yeah, I don't care how many parties Ryan Reeves can bring together. And or this guy, or Joe Thornton. No, he's wacky, and he's wacky. He, people love him. He runs around nude in the clubhouse, and
he never
won anything. Reeves never won anything. Claude Giroux's like one of the greatest leaders in hockey. He's never won a goddamn thing. Here you have Brian Rust, whose nickname is Mr. Elimination. Like that guy's won some things. Like I'm spacing on the guy who's won like 5, Mr. Game 7. Like
Justin
that
Williams.
guy. Yeah. When he walks into a room, like that's leadership.
That's what I always say about Brian Rust.
Guy, yeah.
Like the first time Justin Williams ever lost a Game 7 was 2017 against the Penguins when Brian Rust scored the game-winning goal. So that's all you need to know about Brian Rust. I mean, no, you're absolutely right. I'm a huge Rusty guy as well. I always say he is a giant in Penguins history, and I mean that sincerely. He really is.
Yeah.
He is a self-made hockey player. He wasn't born with all the talent in the world. And he's like 32 and he still keeps getting better, by the way. Like he literally gets better every season. The guy is unbelievable. He's an all-time Penguin as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, I think And also the way these guys take care of themselves, like Rusty might still be really good in 3 or 4 years. Yeah, I bet he will be. Maybe not quite at this level, but who knows? So yeah, you absolutely have to keep some people. And Dubas made some mistakes when he took over. Okay, the Ryan Graves contract, the Jari contract, those are probably the two biggest. I won't hold the Carlson deal against him. We all liked it at the time. At least he got rid of some bad contracts. But I think he wanted to impress the big guys and bring in a bunch of people who could help them win immediately. And I think he fell into that trap a little bit. And I get it. And he made mistakes. But I think now that he's focused on the future, I think he knows what he's doing. I really do. And I think people have to be patient with him.
Hey, the bottom line is the little tweaks this year is pretty much worked out. Lazat's played well. I mean, Glass is, but he's the couple.
But you didn't give up anything to get them, though. That's okay to take some chances on guys like Tomasino.
I said when I tried to spit that Tomasino. Hey, Tomasino is one of the 12 best Penguins. It's like that's what kills me about Puljujärvi. It's like you got to put the 12.
Well, he might be too. Yeah, I think he is too. But
no,
again,
I guarantee he is.
But that's again. So Kyle, I thought Kyle had a deceptively good. And even the guys, he's Lazat or Beauvillier, they're not making much money. You're not taking chances on these
Beauvillier
guys.
is a nice little tweak,
And along the way, he's adding draft picks. He's adding prospects. In the McGroarty case, he got a prospect he thought was better for another prospect. Okay. No, he's done a lot of subtly good things. I just don't think anybody expected the NHL team to get hot the way it did in the last month. And I keep bringing this up in conversations I've had with people in the last few days. I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs. I still wouldn't bet on that right now. But if you look at the Penguins, I'm a big schedule guy. They have so much of the brutal part of their schedule out of the way. Like, as bad as they were in October, look at who they had to play. They're on the road in Toronto, Winnipeg, Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, Boston, where they never win. You can go on and on. A lot of those tough games are out of the way for them. So that they have an opportunity for themselves now. I think especially, guys, in the next week, it's a really soft schedule they have coming up. Flyers, Islanders, Red Wings. You win 3 out of 4 of those. They're going to be sitting pretty going into the new year.
Yeah. You got to win them, though. God, I wish we had Pickering. Yeah. I wish we had Pickering.
And tonight's a big one. Like, seriously, tonight, I think just to go into the break feeling good about themselves. The Flyers aren't very good. We know this, but also in this rivalry, weird stuff happens. It's not always an easy game. On the surface, it has like a big Sid game written all over it.
Oh, yeah.
And a big holiday crowd expected. The Flyers are in town for the first time this year. This has 87. Like, go to, FanDuel and make your little bet on the anytime goal scorer, right? But still got to win the game.
Yeah. I guarantee you the bookmakers at FanDuel do not understand the Sidney Crosby hatred of the Flyers.
Right. I mean, we certainly do, however. So it should be a fun night at the arena, but I'm telling you, these are the games you can't lose if you're really serious about staying in the race.
Sid, I've thanked you for everything. I love you. I truly ask for very little. I really do. I'm very happy. I'm very happy, but I truly ask for very little. But please, Sid and Gino, Rusty, not everybody else. I don't blame everybody else. They're not in my soul. Please don't ruin Christmas.
That's one of my.
I mean, you guys know you'll ruin Christmas. Please.
We always mention the super genius on this show. One of my favorite stories. I just started covering the Penguins. It's like 15 years ago, and I'm in the locker room after a game, and they had beaten the Flyers, and Madden just walks up to Sid and like gives him a bear hug. I'm thinking, like, what the hell's going on? And I hear Madden say, "I know you hate those bastards as much as I do," and Sid just gives him a knowing look and shakes his head. I'm like, oh Jesus, he really does hate the Flyers that much. This is great.
That's what makes it so great. Is Sid and Gino hate them as much as I do. That's what makes it so. Honestly, that's amazing. They were just showing that some Flyer did a slap shot breakaway, and they said on NHL.com, they're like, "This reminds us of something." Remember when Gino in the playoffs just turned around? That was the best.
I'll never forget the satisfaction I saw from Sid. Other than the Cup wins, I've never seen him more satisfied after a series. It was actually the last series the Penguins won in 2018 when they beat the Flyers on Flyers ice in Game 6. Jake had 4 goals that game, I think.
Yeah.
I think it said like 13 points in 6 games in the series, right? And somebody threw a beer bottle at Sid real late in the game, just missed his head like by that much. and it was a full bottle. And I asked him after the game. I said, "What was up with that?" He said, "I don't know what's wrong with these people from here." He said, "Like where I come from, that's a real waste just to throw a bottle of booze like that." I said, "Well, fair enough." But he was delighted. He was so happy knowing those people were heading home unhappy. I know it made his day.
I don't know. I don't know if Eminem is listening to UFO right now or he's listening to this podcast. But one thing I agree with him on a lot of things. But the one thing I totally agree with him is when we went 7-0 against him the year before we won the cup, when he goes, they should put a statue to Tarian outside. Because I remember that final game when that's when we had our big boys then too. We were and we even won all 3 fights. And I literally was like, these guys don't even want to fight us anymore. It was just like total domination. There's your leader, Claude Giroux.
It's funny. I love talking with the people who covered the Penguins like in the 80s, like during the streak at the Spectrum, like Dave Molinari, Tom McMillan. They will tell you stories, just things that used to happen to the Penguins in that building. Even the Philadelphia media would like gloat and taunt the Penguins media. It got to that point where like they all didn't like each other very much. And, it's one of my earliest memories as a Penguins fan growing up as a kid when they finally won at the Spectrum. It was March 2nd, 1989, I think it was. And I mean, it was just, I never thought I was going to see them win there. I mean, I remember as a kid thinking they can't win there.
No.
The tide has turned over the years.
They were 0 for Nixon.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were 0 for. Right. Yeah, I mean, I lived. Me and my girlfriend, I lived through it. And then my buddy Cuddy went and he was on with Jimmy Crenn on the TV. Like he went to Philly. Yeah. I mean, it was the Super Bowl for us. I mean, it was like, people, I mean, you guys are a little bit younger. It was like to live because it's hard now in Pittsburgh. We've had Mario, we've had Sid. We always have the Steelers. It's hard to realize what it was like to have a team kick your ass forever and rub it in your face. It would be like being a Browns fan.
Yeah. Borky told me they partied after that game. Borky said they partied after that game like as much as when they won the cups. Like, oh yeah, it was a big deal. It really was.
Yeah. The old Equibank Mario video that leads us off in the podcast. They basically dedicated like 10 minutes in that. It was almost like it was one from the heart, but just about beating the Flyers. Finally. So hopefully we can give Joe a happy Merry Christmas and not have Joe be the Grinch and take all the presents away because the Flyers win. So hopefully Sid and listen.
And yes, for all those asking, Yager is on top of my tree again this year.
Ooh.
Good.
Nice.
Good old Yags. But before let's gonna do it for the first segment. We're gonna come back. We're gonna talk a little, around the NHL, go up and down. But before we get into that, you gotta, do some shopping this Christmas season. And if you're shopping for insurance, there's no place better to go than the Reg Dunlap of insurance. That would be Mr. Bill Neofis.
Speaking of people who hate the Flyers guts, he would be very high on that list, by the way. I assure you, I expect he will be at the barn this evening for this one. This is one he wouldn't miss. Just a special holiday greetings from our friends at the Neofis Insurance Group. Bill sent this message along. The Neofis Insurance Group wants to extend a happy holiday to the 2 Minutes for Talking crew and all of their loyal subscribers. This is the time to reflect on the past year and plan for the future as you spend time with family and friends, and hopefully reach out to those who need a helping hand. Again, best wishes for the holiday, as well as a happy and healthy New Year to Josh, Corey, Joe, and all of the subscribers. So thank you to Bill. That's the Neofis Insurance Group. He's the king of Christmas presents, by the way. He sent me this box of like soft pretzels with all these very excessive salts and sugars. Like it's not good for the blood pressure, I'm sure, but oh my God, is it good? He's the greatest gift giver ever. So if you need insurance, for God's sake, the Neofis Insurance Group, trust me, it's the way to go.
Thank you, Mr. Neofis.
Thanks, Bill, for everything. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas from my family to yours. So we'll go around the league here. We'll start with the ups and downs on the team side. That's Josh's. We'll start with the team that's won 4 straight. Number 1 on Josh's list would be the Florida Panthers.
Just had a little showdown in the last week or two with a lot of big name teams. They beat Edmonton, by the way. Was it 6-5, I think, in Edmonton?
Mm-hmm.
That just had to kill the Oilers. The Oilers, who have been playing quite well, had that one circled on the calendar, and then Mr. Kachuk and company come to town and take care of business. I know there's going to be at some point a question if they have the stamina to do it again, to get there a third time in a row. So it's incredibly hard to do, as we all know. But I still think they're the best team in hockey, Joe. I top to bottom, 7-game series, I would not pick against anyone other than the Florida Panthers.
Yes, I have Panther fans who are friends, and they come to me and they ask me about the little lull they've had once or twice this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I said they have had some lulls, but every single time they need to put their foot in somebody's ass.
Yes,
they do.
That's right.
Every single time. Oh, Boston. Bam. Oh, Carolina. They didn't get it was like 13-0 in over 2 games. Edmonton. Oh, you're up a couple. Oh, no. Here comes Barkov and Kachuk. Like,
that's right.
Every time people think, oh, hey, look, they're no.
And when they need to remind Tampa that they're not Big Brother anymore.
Oh, yes. And Tampa's another one. Yes, sir. That's what I mean. So, yep. They're the best team in the East, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I'm not picking against them. I didn't pick against them last year. And I love the way they play. They're a team from 1994.
They're who the Flyers wish they were,
Yes.
Like they have that kind of toughness, but they back it up. Like they just, they're everything about them I respect. I really do.
Yes.
They're the real deal.
Speaking of cup contenders, winners of 3 straight, number 2 on your list would be the Colorado Avalanche.
It's funny when you have decent goaltending and you've got the kind of talent Colorado has. Blackwood's been really good, and I think suddenly with their revamped goaltending, I don't know if it's enough to win a cup. Maybe it is. They won a cup with Darcy Kemper, who's a good goalie. He's not a great goalie, right? Maybe that's all they need. I still see some holes in that roster, but boy, Val Nichushkin is back. Apparently, he's staying out of trouble, and when that guy is healthy and when he's right, there are not many power forwards better than him. And you put him on the ice with McKinnon and Makar and Rantanen, they're just a nightmare to stop.
Well, I said we gave Christmas gifts on my Puck Off podcast, and most of mine were joking. I said for Christmas they need some clean pee for Val Nichushkin in a bag so they can have it for the playoffs. The top 2 lines in Colorado, they're like the 93 Penguins, really, maybe minus a Hall of Famer or two, but definitely like is tragically insanely good. But where they're really coming into play now is their third line is coming. Is they get a couple guys on the third line playing hot. And my thing with Cale Makar is, and I said this, Cale Makar, when he's in the offensive zone, he's one of the 10 best forwards in hockey. He's, you take the Edmonton guys, you take Barkov, you take maybe Austin Matthews, you take Cooch, Point, Sid. After that, I'll take Makar is like right there with Rantanen and Pasta Man, as far as I'm concerned. And he's on defense.
You don't see defensemen.
That's how good Makar is. I mean, Makar is just incredible.
The way he can finish, like we've seen guys who can skate the way. What do you call that? What Gino has, Joe? I forget what you. The Wizard.
The witch gene.
The witch gene to me is when you play with the puck and you can see behind your head.
Yeah, I mean he has that. He has that. Like we've seen that over the years with Carlson, guys like this who are so great offensively, but they don't know how the finishing skill that he does. Like the way he buries the puck, he's going to score 30 goals this year. He's like 24 years old or whatever. He's a Hall of Famer. I mean, he is. He's a Hall of Famer. That's what they look like at this age. He is different than any other defenseman. I love Quinn Hughes, great player, but Makar, there's just something a little different about him. So Colorado still has, I think, more top end talent than anyone in the league. Now, for them, it's about players like 6 through 18 in the goaltending, where they have some good players, but you're right, they're playing better. Their bottom 6 have been much better, and their goaltending's been better. If they get that, there's nobody they can't beat.
Just out of curiosity, Josh, because I know you have a young hockey player in your life. It seems to me that Cale Makar is kind of like the favorite of youth hockey players. Like not McDavid so much. He's really popular amongst the kids.
What's interesting? I can't speak for kids in the United States because my kids are in Canada. but I know in Canada now in youth hockey, they always make the best players defensemen now. That's the thing. I don't know why that changed in the last 10 years. That maybe that's part of it because that's the position a lot of them are playing and they look up to him. But he's just fun to watch too. I mean, there's just something about him. He just looks different than any other player. But now you're right. He is wildly popular, and who knows when the Four Nations tournament comes along, what will happen, but that's somebody everyone else will have to account for. You win those kinds of championships and tournaments with guys like him.
Well, they certainly don't make them goaltenders anymore up in Canada.
No, they don't, and I'm grateful for it. I know.
Oh, I know. Just that's the last thing you need, to buy goalie equipment and sit in the stands and have a heart attack.
Oh God, I don't know how goalie parents do it, but the old two Niners, he's a really good goalie. He's I think 17. I think he's 18 now, Dylan. And I said, Borky, I don't know how you do it. Being a goaltender parent, my kid's a defenseman. That's nerve-wracking enough. The goaltending parents, that's next level of medications needed to deal with that.
You're so right though, because I don't want to come, because I do some Vancouver stuff every now and then, and I do not mean to come across as this is an anti-Quinn Hughes thing at all, because Quinn Hughes is amazing. And he's definitely the silver. Oh. He's definitely the silver medalist for the Norse every year.
Yeah, he's great.
But it's literally like, oh, if you're going to give it to LeBron or you're not. Like you can give the Norse to Makar every year. I mean, he's the best defenseman. Whether you want to give it to him or not is your prerogative. But he's the best defenseman.
Agreed.
No question.
Number 3 on your list, Josh. This makes our loss to them look a little bit better. The 7-2-1 in their last 10 Utah Hockey Clubbers.
Yeah, I like their start to the season. Then they really faded for a stretch. I was kind of excited about them before the season, though. Just the upgrades they made on the blue line, if nothing less, I think certainly has made them a better team. They're good at home too. Sometimes when you go to a new city, you get an extra little jump out of that. But you have all the heavy hitters in the West, Joe, and we know Colorado, Dallas, Edmonton, Vegas, Los Angeles, but there's still going to be a playoff spot or two available in that middle ground. And Utah is a team that's going to be in the mix. I think they're very much on the rise.
I picked them to make the playoffs.
So did I.
Now, before I pat myself on the back too hard, I also picked Detroit and Nashville. So, but I saw it. I like they made. The GM made some stunningly good moves. Not stunningly, he's a good GM, but I mean, he really made some. And wait until they get my man Sean Dursey back.
Right?
Yeah.
I can see this being. I mean, I'm not saying that they're going to win the West or anything like that, but there's a long history of teams leaving. Like Colorado, wins a Stanley Cup right after they leave Quebec. I mean, this wasn't a relocation, but. I mean, Winnipeg, even, a couple years after the Thrashers, they finally, break through, get to the Western Conference Finals, Vegas. So be interesting to see them make a run. I'd certainly like to see them, just kind of. Did you guys see, though, the Reddit person posting some Mormon saying there was too much violence at the game they went to?
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, Jesus. I have to look into that. That's actually very funny.
It was something like, oh, I really like this game of hockey, but if the hockey club is going to play this way, I'm going to have to encourage my kids to root for someone else.
Oh God!
What happened?
It was just like a fight. Like these Mormons went to the.
They should trade for Rempe then, just to shove it up his ass. I didn't put him on any of my list. I just thought of it. I missed putting Rempe. Oh, I mean, are you stupid? I don't know. I mean, literally, like elbow to the head with the numbers showing. Yeah. On a guy,
I see
on a Four Nation on Miro Heiskanen. Thank God he walked away, because we both picked them, and I love Dallas. But I mean, how stupid can you be, Josh?
Can I say he's been ejected in like 4 of his 24 NHL games, something like that. Like,
yeah,
I've had about enough of him. He's very personable, so I know some people in the media like him, but he's not an NHL player, and it's getting kind of embarrassing. And if you're the Rangers, given the problems you have, what the hell are you doing putting that guy in the lineup?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that they need to be doing other than putting Rempe in the lineup. I'll tell you.
Chris Kreider, a healthy scratch tonight, by the way.
Whoa, yeah. I just love Heiskanen. I mean, you're talking a guy who's upset that Cal McCarr's a defenseman. I mean, he's like, Cal McCarr should be a forward, and I should be winning Norris trophies.
Yeah, great player, absolutely.
Now on the way down, no surprise, number 1 on Josh's list would be the losers of 13 straight. thank God the Buffalo Bills exist for the people in Buffalo, because the Buffalo Sabres ain't it.
They're developing a permanent spot on this list. I'm going to keep putting there if they're going to keep it 13 in a row. The owner of the team, Terry Bogola, flew to Montreal just to give them a pep talk, and then they lost to the Canadiens 6-1. This is a disaster, and I love Lindy. I know you do too. I'm not blaming him, quite honestly. I'm blaming the people in the locker room. There's a lot of guys on that team who should be playing at a higher level, but I can't believe anybody could lose 13 in a row in the Eastern Conference. There's a lot of bad teams right now in the East.
Yeah, and I think I quoted you in a couple of places this week. It's like, yeah, I mean, like Philly stinks, Columbus stinks, the Islanders are no good, the Penguins played terrible for a month.
Detroit's not very good.
Detroit's not very, like, how
Montreal
do you lose?
stinks. Yeah.
Montreal, yeah, we just named 6 teams. As I said, 13 games, even a broken clock is right twice a day. Like, how do you not just win a game? How do you not just get, like, it's almost impossible to be this bad. But they gave a bunch of defensemen other than I don't know, Taves. Now we'll be on like 4 teams. I don't know what's not Taves. I'm sorry. The kid from Colorado they got.
Byram.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to him. I thought he was like almost as good as Taves. So I don't know. So I can see giving him a contract. But they got three guys on that team, 3 defensemen, Samuelson and Power. They gave him long-term deals. I mean, they have deals that make Graves' deal look. Maybe that's a trading partner. Graves for Samuelson or there Graves for Power. I mean seriously. Like, and then I like Dahlin, but he's the captain. You're fighting guys in practice.
I know.
Like I don't. But they need a different general manager. I never. You know me. Corey's been listening for 10 years. I've been talking hockey for 12 years. I never call for somebody's head, but this is just ineptitude. Like you have to do something.
No, it is. That's such a great hockey town.
I'm sorry, except for Ron Hextall's head. Wow. And I will say again, Merry Christmas to everybody except the Hextall family.
Yeah, we all did that for sure. And looking at their schedule now, they're at the Islanders tonight, which they're pretty bad right now. But I hope the Sabres lose again, just so 2 days after Christmas we get this showdown, Joe. The Chicago Blackhawks go to Buffalo. That'll just be some very amusing hockey to watch in terms of ineptitude, because the Blackhawks are just still a disaster, and the Sabres, well, that goes without saying.
Yep, easy cheap Christmas present for anyone up in Buffalo. I take it for that. I will say that they get a lot of people that go to their games.
They do.
Poor people up there. Next on your list, number 2, the losers of 4 straight. That would be the Minnesota Wild.
Well, and here's what happened. They've played a couple of heavyweights, and it hasn't gone so well. I think this started, I believe it was Edmonton. I think it was in Minnesota, went to Minnesota and really gave them a beating. They haven't been the same since. So I give the Wild credit for what they've done. I think we agreed they weren't as good as they looked in the first couple of months of the season. They've been maybe my biggest surprise. I didn't think they were this good. Now they're dealing with a little bit of adversity. I still think that they're in good shape to be a playoff team down the road the way they've started the season. But 4 in a row is 4 in a row. That does get your attention, Joe.
Oh, absolutely. I picked them last. I picked them last. I picked Chicago.
I think I did too.
Yeah. I just thought the wheels were going to come off, and I did not think that the Gustafsson was. I thought he had a one good year, and then he's back to his meme, and I didn't see it. I did not. I'm shocked Zuccarello and Boldy are playing as well as they are. So, good on them. I think they played well enough that they can probably hang on and squeak into the playoffs. But maybe what water finds its level. Maybe they're probably going to lose a bunch more games because they shouldn't have won half the games they won in the first place. So
that's right. They just kind of strike you as a team that'll make the playoffs and lose in the first round. Like that kind of feels like their destiny at this point. I don't know. They get the Blackhawks tonight, by the way, so that might be the end of their stretch. But they've definitely cooled off a little bit in the last few games. But look at who they've beat. I'm just looking at their schedule. They lost in the last 10 days. They've lost to Edmonton. They've lost to Vegas. They've lost to Florida. They've lost to Winnipeg. That's 4 of the best teams in the league who beat them pretty routinely. So
yeah.
There's no crime to lose to Vegas, Florida, or Edmonton.
No, there's not.
Winnipeg, I think can be. I think you got to beat Winnipeg.
Yeah, and they lost there 5-0. So they're definitely in a funk.
Maybe the owner has to come give him a pep talk.
Yeah. And number 3 on your list is the Bluesers. Losers of 3 straight, but also, I mean, we'll get into a certain player on their team on Joe's list, but the Bluesers, I don't know. I mean, they have like nothing special to me. Like I couldn't. It almost makes me not like hockey to watch the Blues play hockey.
They're one of my least favorite teams to watch. I don't know why. Carolina's a good team. They're actually my least favorite team to watch. They just bore me to death.
Yeah, they're terrible.
But yeah, the Blues just they don't have a lot of top end talent. They were playing a little better for a while, but now they seem to be coming back to reality. They are just as mediocre as it gets, Joe. We talk about the mushy middle and not wanting to be there. I feel like the Blues, and maybe the Penguins are there too in some ways, but the Blues have been there for a little while now. There's just nothing to get excited about on that team.
No, I'd be interested to see the way they pick the carcass in the trade deadline. I'm not a fan of Doug Armstrong. I think he's a very, very overrated GM. He must treat for dinners at TSN and Sportsnet because they treat him like Jesus Christ.
Yeah, they do.
And he's literally just like if Bingham wasn't on fire and Craig Berube didn't show up, I mean that's really his career right there. Because what did he do after that?
Yeah.
He let Pietrangelo go for Torrey Krug. Now I like Torrey Krug when he could play the midget, the 5th guy in Boston.
Right.
When he's
he was effective in that role.
Yeah, when he's shining Char's shoes, he was pretty good. But what? And some of the other moves he's made, very, very, very. I mean, Ryan O'Reilly. What?
Yeah.
They
won the cup. God bless them. They can't take it away, but that was the least impressive Stanley Cup roster I've seen in the last 25 years. I mean, that's just the way it is.
And the way he's treated like God, I'm just not a fan of his. So and I'm not a fan of all for the Christmas gift. I said they need some more hangers because now I'm sure they're gonna be retiring about 15 jerseys from that Stanley Cup team.
Robert Pertuzzo's number 41 going to the rafters.
All right, now on the player side, Joe's list, we got Alexei Protas, the Belarusian that has 14 goals and 15 assists on the season. And kind of has never really he's finally living up to his hype, isn't he, Joe?
He's a man. He's just everything that you want from a guy. He's just big shoulders, good hands, goes to the net, takes care of business, isn't afraid to mix it up, and he's a good citizen. I wish the Penguins had. I wish he was on Gino's line. He's exactly what I want in a hockey player. Unfortunately, he's like pumping fists with terrible Tommy after they score a goal every time I watch.
It's a really good player, though. I know. And they've got these no-name guys. Like a lot of people have never heard of him, right? But I mean, he can. Every time I watch them play, like, man, they're better than people think. People keep saying, well, they had that hot start. They're not really a contender. The Capitals they're barely a playoff team. Like, well, maybe that's what I thought at the beginning of the season. If they keep winning like 8 out of every 10 games, we might have to change our tune a little bit. That guy's got to be coach of the year right now, by the way. He's a really good coach. It'll be interesting when Ovi comes back. It sounds like he'll be back first game after the holiday break. He was playing great, so I'm not suggesting he will hurt them by returning, but sometimes that is an adjustment because they are a well-oiled machine right now, and he's going to want his minutes. He's going to want his role, and he's been a little streaky the last couple of years, so I'm interested to see how they're affected by his return, but they're way better than people think.
Yep. I didn't mean to step on you, Josh, but he also is like, what is he, like 6'2", 6'3"? He's got those round shoulders. He's got those boulder shoulders, like under the pads. You can tell. You can tell it. He looks like a James Van Riemsdyk. He has that hulking kind of like those big shoulders. I'm spacing. Oh, he looks. I know exactly. He's like if Dave Anderchuk could skate.
That's a pretty good call, actually. I like that.
He has those Anderchuk shoulders, and hey, Dave Anderchuk's a Hall of Famer. I'm not trying to. I love it, Anderchuk. I'm just saying, he has that hulking way he goes down the ice, and he's got hands. I love it. I mean, and he's not 5'7" like every Penguin guy in 165. He's a man. Oh, love that guy.
Absolutely.
Next up on Joe's list is Joel Kiviranta. I always have to Google and be like, am I 100% sure I'm saying this right? But he had 2 goals against the Sharks, but followed a couple nights ago. But last night had a hat trick against the Seattle Krakens.
He feeds into the whole. We were hinting at how they got the third line's got some guys that are scoring now. I think he had two games with 2 goals in, like the last 5 or 6 days. I put him on the morning skates. Hat trick last night. Yeah, the arrow is pointing up for Kiviranta, who was actually a Dallas Star a couple of years ago. Dallas just throws away guys to Colorado.
They really do. No, that's true. I mean, Nichushkin is the ultimate example, but no, he's a good looking player. Every time I look in the box score, there's the name popping up. Every time I watch him play, there he is. And it's amazing how many guys in this league now, and he's a good example. Like the league has changed. It used to be like if you were a 30-goal scorer, like you were a big name. Everyone knew. Now you got guys like this who people haven't even heard of. It's another one. Going to score 30, 35 goals. Or who knows? That kind of depth, though, is going to help them. I like him. Every time I watch him play, I notice him, Joe.
Yep.
Kind of attaching to Joe's number 3 or Josh's number 3 on the up list. We have the 7-2-1 Utah Hockey Club. We had Dylan Guenther, 6 goals in his last 5 games, certainly helping them on their way up the rankings.
He's a very good hockey player. And what's funny is, I remember when he signed the contract this summer, I actually skipped him on on like the puck off. Like, here's what happened over the summer, like wrap up. I didn't even mention his contract. Like, who the hell is this guy? We're in the time constraints. Wow. He's a good hockey. He scores a lot of goals for Utah.
Yeah, he's one of those guys you see in person, you really appreciate him. He's really smart. If you watch them play, he just knows where to go. And boy, can he shoot the puck. They've got a couple of guys like that. Again, this is like the good under the radar addition of guys who are hot. Joe does his homework. Joe's just not going to say, "Oh, Connor McDavid has 10 points in 4 games." And it's true though. Gunther's a really good player, and he's one of the reasons I think they can be a playoff team. I think they've got more top end skill than people realize.
It would just be so great if they were still in Phoenix, because I would certainly drive over to see. I loved going to Phoenix to see games. It was easier than getting to than Anaheim.
I actually like the arena in I like the Glendale Arena quite a bit, actually. I always enjoyed that place. That whole area was great. I agree. I'm sure Salt Lake City's lovely in January, but I actually will miss that Arizona trip. They just built the arena in the wrong part of the city. They didn't build it where the people are. That ultimately is always a problem.
Josh, you're absolutely correct, except for one point. It's not in a city.
Right. Yeah, right.
They built it out in the desert. If they built it in Scottsdale, which is why the NHL is coming back there, and they can't wait to get back. They just had that Mormon guy write the check to get rid of Morello, which they couldn't.
You go to Scottsdale, and all you see is young people with money, which is exactly what the NHL needs, because tickets aren't cheap, right? So they put the arena in Glendale where nobody lives. I know it was very foolish from the very beginning. It was a nice building too, but they completely botched that.
But imagine if they had this guy's money now, not Morello's cheapness, and they built that arena, and you could go in Scottsdale and see Dylan, and you can see Cooley and these clowns.
Completely agree.
Yeah, bummer. But they'll be back. They'll be back eventually. When we get to 40 teams, I mean, we're gonna get there eventually, right? So
probably.
Now my favorite, the best for last, Joe's list on the way down. Because this really, like Josh said, Joe, you do your homework. So this always makes me feel like a much more intelligent hockey fan when I talk to other people. Because I'm like, I want
Bill Neofus to get his money's worth.
Yeah. But Brandon Saad, Mr. Pittsburgh, 4 goals in 30 games this year with the Bluesers. Making us not look so bad for not taking him back whenever we could have had him. When was that? In 2015?
He'd have more than 4 goals playing with Gino, though. I guarantee you that. But I love the Saad father. I have his card. I know his family. I got a signed card by him. I yearn to have him on my team. I love the Saad father, and he's number 2 on the move list on Josh Yohe's Athletic on the trade board. And I think he was going to make some team. He's the guy he's the piece on a team. He's the piece.
Yeah, he's struggling. I love Brandon, one of my favorite people in hockey, a very important person when you look at the Pittsburgh hockey community, what he has accomplished as part of that group with Vinny Trocheck and JT Miller and John Gibson. Brandon Saad, very good career. He's the kind of guy, though, you have to have some playmakers with him to get the most out of him. And the Blues just play such of a dull, boring game. Like, it's just not a good spot for him. You put him with center who can really see the ice, he can still score. I think the only issue with Brandon that there's ever been, like, I'm not knocking him. He's one of those guys, he's so laid back. He almost comes across as maybe not having the fire and not having enough fire. Maybe he doesn't have the fire he once did. I don't know. He's made a lot of money. He's won cups. Maybe that's the case. Maybe he's not the player he was 5 or 6 years ago. I don't think he is. But he could still help you in the right situation. And Corey, you referenced this. One of my favorite stories ever in 2015, when he was traded to Columbus, I think it was, Brandon Saad, Jim Rutherford really took an earful, or heard an earful rather, from David Morehouse. He went nuts because he wanted Brandon Saad so bad. And Phil Kessel was a Pittsburgh Penguin 24 hours later. So, yeah.
I remember exactly. Like, I remember exactly where I was when we won the lottery. I remember exactly when I woke up and looked at my phone and saw that Brandon Saad was a Columbus Blue Jacket.
Yep.
I shit myself in anger. I really did. I was like crazy Beavis. I was like Beavis. Like, wow. I'm like, Pittsburgh. Like, he's exactly what we needed,
and he was. Yeah.
And then we got Phil Kessel, and the rest is history.
Right.
It's funny that Morehouse did that because I literally was like, what?
Oh, yeah. It's amazing. None of those kids have ever played a minute for the Penguins. When you think about it, it really is.
Yeah. Yeah, it is amazing. Number two.
Who knows? Who knows? He's never
maybe someday.
Yeah.
Maybe he is maybe, the Blues owe us a favor, don't they?
Future considerations will bring the Sod father home.
That'd be the player you don't give up a lot for. On your way down here, Matt Murray in Toronto, and I'm curious, Joe, as to why Matt Murray is on your down list, because he did come back and win.
Yeah, he looked good, and then they sent him back to the minors.
Oh, they did?
What? Yeah, he went back. I mean, I just wanted to mention him on this show. I root for him. He won us 2 cups, and he came up and they were up, I think 3-0, and they got a little close, and then Buffalo had 2 goals waved off. One was very questionable goalie interference. I didn't even see it, and Murray didn't even flop. Berube just has nuts. He just but anyway, long story short, he won the game, and then I don't know if it was just a paper move. They're in the same city, so it's not like he had to get on a bus and go anywhere.
Yeah,
but I just felt bad for Muzz, and I put him on the down. Just how do you come up and win? He gets sent down.
Yeah, I will say though, I'm happy that he made it back. Hopefully, that's the first of many games that we'll see from him at the NHL level. It was about a year ago at this time. The Penguins played in Toronto, and I ran into him in the press box in between periods. We had a long chat. I really like him on a personal level. Matt Murray, good human being. And I said to Matt, I got to ask you something, Matt. I said, how long has your hip been a problem? He looks me right in the eye. He says, about 2014, 2015. I said, really? He said, yeah, I've been dealing with it for like almost a decade, and it finally just gave out on me. And I thought, geez, it puts in perspective what he did, and knowing that he was never really 100%, and he still won 2 cups. And he's not the kind of guy who's going to lie to you about something like that either. Mm-hmm. He just played through it. And when everyone wants to know, well, what happened to Matt Murray? Was it his dad's death? Was it this? Was it that? Well, maybe it was his health. Maybe that played a bigger role than any of us ever realized. But he told me then a year ago, he said, listen, I'm determined. I'm going to make it back to the NHL. He said, I don't know how long it's going to take. I'm telling you, I'm going to make it. And he made it. And good for him. And those 2 banners aren't hanging in PPG Paints Arena without him.
Not at all. And as well as we can, not to contrast, he handled himself with class.
Yes, he did. And it wasn't easy being the guy who replaced Marc-Andre Fleury. I promise you that. And that was something that, and he would be open about it. He would always say, I know I'm never going to be, I could win 10 cups. I'm not going to be as popular as that guy. I know I'm not. But right. Matt Murray's a good guy, and I give him so much credit for fighting his way back.
Yeah, that's why I put him on the. I couldn't say he's on the up because he's back in the minors.
I know. I feel bad. I know.
I didn't see that. That's why I was so curious. I don't think he won. I didn't know, but
hey, Bill, I do my homework.
Yeah, Joe is all over. And we'll stick with Toronto here. Joe's number 3 would be Austin Matthews, and I didn't see the extent of how long he is out, but he will not play again tonight, I believe.
Yeah, he was out. He went to Europe in a hidden plane, did whatever they did to him. He came back. He didn't look himself a couple games. He still scored some goals because he's the great American hero, Austin Matthews. And he actually scored the game. He was not his last game. And then Berube, they shut him down. And he's not playing again until after Christmas. And here's a guy that he needs to get right for Toronto to, they're playing great, but they need their captain. Well, and as far as needing their captain, I want him in between the Tkachuk brothers.
That's right. That's where my mind was.
Right. But I'll tell you, there is going to be, what is their decision going to be? He plays for Canada. He plays for the United States, beats the Canadians, then his wrist never heals this year, and they lose in the first round.
Yeah, if he's going to see doctors outside of the country, that's not a good sign. I assure you, one Michael Sullivan in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, is interested in the health of Matthews. And Matthews hasn't been great this year by his standard. He's got 23 points in 24 games. There's that game in Pittsburgh a couple of weeks ago when the Penguins beat the Leafs pretty comfortably. I barely noticed him all game. Like he doesn't look himself right now. And I immediately thought of the Four Nations tournament. He for Team USA might be the most important player in that tournament, other than the goaltender, is probably Hellebuck, because when you're Team USA, you've got to deal with McDavid and Crosby down the middle. Looks like McKinnon's going to play on the wing, but that means Austin Matthews is that much more important. And the burden that would fall on Jack Eichel would be just massive to be the guy in the middle against the big guys from Canada. So that's a very significant injury, to say the least.
And besides his goal scoring being down, his back checking is down. His takeaways are down. He's injured.
Yeah.
He's basically injured. So, that's a huge debate. Does he turn his back on America and rest for the Maple Leafs?
Wow.
That's a tough one.
Reminds me when 66 couldn't skate, but he felt like playing in the Olympics, and he knew the Penguins stunk that year anyway. So came back and played one period of a game, and then that was it for the rest of the year. 2002. Then it was Mario, so that was okay.
Is Sullivan's gonna have to call Rusty from a different phone when Russ is in the Bahamas?
hey, Rusty, isn't center your natural position?
Well, that'll do it for us on the second segment. We'll come back and talk Steelers, maybe a little college football playoff. Don't want to promise anything, but the Steelers on their way down, man. Speaking with the down, so we'll talk about that on the third segment of Two for Talking. Welcome back to the third segment of Two for Talking, and good Lord, the Steelers. We couldn't have felt better about them, and then here we are. All of a sudden, the sky is falling, and I hate to be that pessimistic Steelers fan, but after the game on Saturday when they lost to the Ravens, the way they lost, I kind of just sitting there going, you know what? We've seen this story before. Yeah. We've seen this team fall apart down, unleash hell in December, coming back to haunt Mike Tomlin. And, it just looks like a team that's going to maybe end up 10-7 and lose in the first round.
Well, it does. I will say this, though, in their defense. I think a lot of teams would go to Philly and Baltimore in back-to-back weeks and lose. Like, I don't think there's any crime in that. And they are banged up. The fact is, and yeah, they were outplayed. They didn't play a good game. No other way around it. But you're playing that offense with 4 starters hurt on defense. Like that alone, you got 3 guys in your secondary out, and you're dealing against Lamar Jackson, and then Larry O out on the defensive line. Like that's 4 really important people. You're playing without George Pickens. Obviously, that limits the offense. So I think the most important thing for the Steelers right now is to get healthy. If you don't have that this time of year, you got problems. So yeah, very disappointing. They got punched in the mouth too. That was the thing that bothered me most, was the defense they just ran all over them. The Steelers aren't ever supposed to let that happen. So no, the mood's not good with the Steelers, and we all know who they play on Christmas Day. So they better get healthy in a hurry. That's what I'm saying.
I actually think, though, fellas, that I think the Kansas City game was the one game I thought they could win.
Me too.
It doesn't look as good now with Peasy Jr. dinged and the other safety out, which really, even though my boy Minka made his first big play in 5 years,
good.
we're really missing the 2 defensive backs and then the other cornerback. We're missing those 2. That's huge, and against Kansas City, that's not gonna that doesn't bode well. That being said, once again, not the ifs and buts of candy and nuts, but if Russ turns the other way is a touchdown. I know
Yep.
why he ran into that tackle.
Right.
They called a screen pass when the game was still winnable that never works. And I've been on this show bitching for 3 months. I've never seen a screen. I haven't seen a screen pass work in the NFL since Tony Dorsett ran it with Roger Staubach. Why they ran that? But the other thing, the thing that gets me is, and I've been a Tomlin backer the whole time. He's living in your fears shit.
Yeah.
Why are you punt again?
Oh,
you think he would have got enough crap the first time?
It's unbelievable.
What do you do? We weren't going to score twice. We weren't. And, it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I didn't understand that at all. There were a couple of decisions I didn't like. And speaking of coaching, I understand there were people out defensively, but if you go back and watch, I noticed this all game. The Steelers defense looked so confused before almost every snap. There were guys talking to each other when the ball's being snapped. I mean, it was like a constant trend throughout the game. That was not a very good look for the coaching staff in general. But Baltimore's going to do that to you. They're going to. But the thing is, I thought the Steelers' offense moved the ball much better than I expected them to. Actually, it's funny. Russ had 2 crippling turnovers, and those were both on him. But he actually played well, I thought, otherwise. Like, they moved the ball well without Pickens, which I really wasn't expecting. So get healthy, and you have a chance. I mean, I certainly think they are on the second tier of AFC teams. I still think, Buffalo and Kansas City are clearly the 2 best teams in the AFC. They're in the Steelers are with Baltimore and Houston. They're good teams that could lose in the first round, sure. But I still think winning the division is important, though. I still think to get that home game, to not blow a 2-game lead late in the season against Baltimore, there's still some things on the line here. And hopefully for the Steelers' sake, Kansas City's not going to care too much on Christmas. They still have the 1 seed to sew up, but they've got 2 weeks to do it. So it's not like a high-pressure, desperate game for them. But then again, they are 14-1, so let's not act like they don't know what they're doing.
No, I think, I liked it a lot more when I thought the quarterback was dinged.
Right.
But I do think something about, look at last year, how we won the Franco Harris game, which never should have happened. We won. How did we win? That was a miracle. So I we could have the hidden juju, as Mr. Cope would say. I think I just have a good feeling on Christmas for this team. And Russ, the interception was deplorable. The fumble was unnecessary.
Yeah.
Other than that, he played pretty good, and at least we have a quarterback. That's the thing. We would have lost this game with Fields, and would have been an eyesore. It'd have been terrible to watch.
Yeah.
At least this way we're having fun. We're throwing the ball. He hit number 18. That was nice. So that's the thing. At least no matter what happens, I think we can win a playoff game. I even just by the hook or by crook, just go into Buffalo and win 37-35. I don't. With Russ, we have a chance. We didn't have a chance for 3 years to win a playoff game.
I agree with that. Everybody was so high on the Steelers 2 weeks ago. Now all of a sudden, they're not going to win another game. I repeat that they lost on the road against 2 really good teams. Yep. It's gonna have. We all knew this schedule. This stretch at the end was a nightmare, and it is. So, okay. And especially, I thought the Philly game, they were way worse than they were in Baltimore, actually. Baltimore, boy, Lamar fumbles early in the game. The Ravens fall on it. Their punt returner fumbles. They fall on it. And they certainly got some breaks. They outplayed the Steelers, yes. But yeah, if Russ just holds on to the ball, they probably score a touchdown there. They're up 14-7. Who knows how that changes things? But they certainly showed to me they can play with them, especially if they can just get healthy defensively. That's the whole key moving forward. And Kansas City, who knows? But every Kansas City game's close. They don't blow people out.
Right. And that's why, Corey, I know you're in despair, but I don't think they got their ass kicked as bad in Baltimore as they did in Philly.
Yeah. No,
I agree.
No. Yeah, Philly was a big brother beating little brother. That's what that felt like. Big brother sitting on you for 10 minutes, not letting you out. Yeah, and I will say this with a little sliver of hope. I got this vibe from the end of that Ravens game. It was the same feeling I had in 2008 in the Lendell White game.
The
Lendell White against Tennessee. I think Roethlisberger threw 5 interceptions. We looked awful, and Lendell White stomped on the terrible towel. And And I remember like that day being like, man, like I don't know if we're gonna win another game, and we didn't lose another game. That was it. We won every game the rest of the regular season, then won the Super Bowl. So
I just want to see a better coaching job, not only out of Mr. Tomlin, who I've loved and respected and been in his corner for the last 20 years, and also better play calling. I'm a Najee guy, but a couple times they didn't go to the little kid, and it's like that guy would have you could just seen where the little guy would have ran 10 more yards. Yeah, Najee, it was 2nd and 9 and not 2nd and 3.
Yep.
Run the wheels off that midget kid.
Especially with that contract he's on, it's like,
that's how you win in the NFL. You take advantage of the running backs who aren't making any money, right?
Yep.
No, so it's going to be very. Boy, I don't like Christmas games. It's going to screw up the whole. If they lose, everyone's pissed off at dinner. It's kind of like everyone's got an edge about them, right? It adds some stress to the holidays. That's for sure.
The thing I hate about it, people are like, don't have a 4:00 game because then it's during dinner. But a 1:00 game, everybody in Pittsburgh will be in transit from one house to another, most likely during that period. You know what I mean? Like if you're not hosting Christmas, you're going somewhere and you'll be leaving during that time frame. So
you're gonna have to show up early or show up late for dinner. Like I already told my aunt was like, so what time are you coming over? About 4:00 good? I said, nah, it's gonna be a little later, Tracy. Like, sorry, it's gonna be more like 5. I don't.
Yep.
Gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, the night Christmas game was always fantastic.
Yes.
Why can't they play at night?
I don't know why Netflix wouldn't do that. Just make it at 4 and 8. I don't really like the 1:00 slot for this. No, I agree.
The perfect time. You're done with everything, and it's time to sit back and have some football. Isn't perfect?
See, on the West Coast, are you going to be in California for Christmas, Joe, or are you coming home?
No, I'm right there.
You get it out of the way early. You can just open your presents Christmas morning while you're watching the Steelers, and then you're good the rest of the day.
Yeah, and our tree, it takes, I have a grown daughter, so it's like, here you go. I already sent her gift. Her gift is already opened in Berkeley. I sent her a nice record player, so she got her big gift from Dad.
Nice.
Nice. Yeah, Santa showed up at Berkeley. But the morning though, and I know there's like these stats that somehow the Penguins are good on Saturday mornings, but I don't know. Other than Game 5 against the Flyers in 2009, every big Saturday morning game, I would not even have my coffee yet, and we would be down 2-0 to the Creamsicles. Like, I don't care how they play against someone. If it was Philly or Ovechkin, we were always down 2-0 before I had any eggs.
I
hate morning hockey. For me, I hate. It's like I can't even adjust. And I'm down 2-0.
The hockey fan in me hates afternoon games. It's just a game that's meant to be played at night, in my opinion. And most players I've talked to do not like afternoon games. It throws them out of their rhythm. The only one who likes it, number 87. He told me one time he wished every game was at 1:00. He loves it. He feels more sharp than, I don't know. That's crazy to me, but that's.
Well, then we should play. Then change the schedule.
Well, the problem is his teammates don't like them. So yeah.
It's like, you know what though? Honestly, other than Gino and Rusty, we can find 15 other guys to play with them.
That's right.
That's right. Exactly. Anybody you want to play with Sidney Crosby? Tell him you like to play at 1:00. You're on the team.
That's right.
Well, hey, that'll do it for us here. Wishing everybody, a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever it is you celebrate. There's probably a couple that I missed, so I'm not even going to try and list them all. But we appreciate you guys, and we hope you guys enjoy, the holiday season with your families and with the Penguins. And with the Penguins win tonight, hopefully this doesn't look dumb and we lose. Well, that'll do it for us here on the Two for Talking podcast, and we'll talk to you guys next week.